specified, and also I'm just giving my column name along with the data type. It may not be not null. It may not be not. It may not be not null. So if I accept the not null only, I will enter into the my values and check that constraint first. So yeah, you can see this is very simple example to understand. Data type you can specify. Check the column name is not null. You have to check this one. So yeah, you can see this example. This is very easy to understand. Creating the table, training is a table name, employee ID, data type, course ID, data type, taken date, data type, and also the giving specifying the domain constant called not null. And primary key, yeah, so we'll discuss the primary key little later. It may be concluding these conditions with respect to this, but this is very helpful while we're going to be learn the primary key. I will also go into a lot of the discussion between the primary key and why we are using, and also the foreign key. So most relation database or management systems are not null constants automatically by default. Okay, so you have to be stick with that. Then you can specify it is a not null, and the primary key columns will going to be shown little later, but it may not be explicitly going to be specified. You have to specify manually. And also the alter the table not statement. So you can see we can alter it similarly what we've seen in the unique. We can also see in the not null. Update the table name, set column name is equal to 0 where the column name is not null. So at the time you specified this, the all the null values going to be not null values using the update statements. Similarly, the alter table, you have to be specified the not null constraint column to use. Alter the table, you can do the modify. Modify the column data type is a not null. It must be a not null. At the time you realize that it must be a not null, you cannot enter the without consist of any data with respect to that column name. Yeah, you can say this is very interesting, I can say. So I've taken updated training. So training is my table name. I'm just updating on top of it. Set taken date. So a taken date is a column. Current date. So current date is a predefined kind of keyword or predefined function in the SQL. It will give as current timestamp. Which kind timestamp is going to be recorded in this video? 31st 7 and 2022. At the time I realized this is the current stamp or current date where current date is null. So whenever you see these things, we just updating the null values with corresponding to the existing or current timestamp with this column, taken date column. So we can also add the take date column is not null. It must be not null next onwards or from today onwards, so that it will be possible to get that not null. So that is also one of the basic sense to understand with respect to taken date time with the not null. So yeah, similarly, we can also check SQL check constraint. How does that going to be helpful? At the time we learn not null and also the unique value. So the check constraint is very basic constraint. You have to be checked whether that consists of the null values or the not. The constraint name and the check some boolean expression whether it is a true or false. So according to that, it's going to give the information and try to check corresponding to the column names. So let's go and detail discuss about what are the different checks to handle out with respect to the creating the table, updating the table, or alter the table. So cover the creating the table. I have some table called products, which consists of the product ID, product name, with having some primary key and some constant. You can say the foreign keys we had. So for that we can just look onto the only for check. So you can see here somehow selling price with having the numerical column with 10, 10, and also the 2. 10 comma 2 for the decimal point of the time. So what we had to check the selling price is going to be greater than 0. So greater than 0, whenever you see the value consists of the cell greater than 0, if I have a value for the selling price is greater than 0, I will accept, I will make a condition for the true. So our command promote our going to be interpretation of the SQL interpretation of the compiler, it's going to be to the next line of the execution. But until unless it may not be accepted the true condition, it will be come out of the loop or come out of the query statement if you're facing any false condition. If it's going to be less than or minus 1000, it will be come out of the query saying that this is a false because the check is not satisfied with corresponding to the greater than zeros values. So for that, we just come out of the loop, returns a false statement. The RBSMS also will get the error. Similarly, you will assign the check constraint with respect to the separate name. The constraint name is going to be very helpful to clarify the error message, and it's also written the RDMMS to hello and no orders. That's going to be helpful as also the violating the formats. So let's check this one. We just encounter, I'm just skipping this part up to 3 lines. So you can see the selling price is a numeric data type with the spreader of some range, and also I'm just representing as by using the constraint. So for example, the statement assigning of the positive selling prices has a names to check constraint on top of the selling price. This is the alias corresponding to whatever the selling price we had, but as a constraint to check, as a constraint to check positive selling price. So this is a constraint I have to make. I have to write something. You can also write like this. This is also fine. But some of the cases we are going to be enhanced, assign a name to the constraint. So that is also very helpful to use a keyword of the constraint every time assigning up a constraint name. And you can also define check constraint that going to be refers as a multiple columns also. So if you have a multiple columns, you want to be ensured that cost is always lower than the selling price. You can mention the multiple columns for the check. You can see here we are just specifying the mention as a selling price, it's going to be greater than zero, and also the cost having the numeric checking the cost is greater than zero, and also the check selling price is greater than the cost price. So like that, we're going to be specified some of the checks to understand your data, so that it will be slightly going to be helpful whenever you're declaring the check constraint when we are going to be learn. And some of the cases with also be used for the boolean expressions. One of the check constraints is going to be associated with the selling price, and also the associated with the cost columns to make some of the changes. So let's play around with that. So for example, you have a statement like this, the name of the check constraint. So the selling price, and to check selling price is greater than zero, and also the cost is greater than zero. To check that if it's going to be two are going to be matched or two are going to be satisfied with that condition, it will come into the constraint domain. It will check valid selling price. To check selling price is going to be greater than of the, I'm just giving a name to that validating, you can say selling price is greater than the cost. So this is where you have to practice. Maybe you can install your MySQL and practice these kind of the commands. That is very easier to understand while we are going to learn some of the syntaxes with respect to the creating the table, or understand the checks, or understand the not null, understanding the unique, so that will be much appreciated. So in the next class, we are going to be learn some of the different concepts by using our PPT sessions, operations in the SQL, and also we can learn some of the keys and confidential information with respect to the domain constraints what we had. Thank you.